And so that's what I want to encourage you guys. I want to take the next couple minutes and just kind of like hit the reset button and try to give you some perspective on this. I know that this is, for some people, they're struggling with this. They're struggling with tests, they're struggling on quizzes, or it's a lot more studying, it's more work. Right? I talked to somebody in one of my classes earlier today, and she was like, Coach, this is the first time I've ever had to study in high school. And I was like, well, shame on the education system, right? Shame on us. And that was my experience too. I had the same experience here. But the problem is that we've created such an expectation that you have to do X, Y, and Z and look so important on paper and so impressive on paper that it actually is like detrimental to you, right? So, and here's what I mean. There's this paradigm. It's a very, very high-achieving student and parent paradigm that I really think as a society we have to get past. Right? It's this idea that the outcome or whatever the value for doing an activity is like the result. So it's more important that you're successful at something than you actually learn something from it. And I think maybe not so much in athletics, but more in academics. But you've seen it on both sides. And here's what I mean. We've created a scenario now in the school system and with your parents also, maybe not all of your parents, but where you're intentionally being strayed away from doing difficult things because you're not going to see success in them, right? So that's going to hurt your GPA, or that's going to prevent you from doing X, Y, Z, or that's going to, and I'm just going to share a few things with you, right? Like, this class is difficult. For a lot of people, it's an adjustment. If you've never taken an AP class, you've probably never had to study. You've never had to prepare. You've never taken cumulative tests before. And you've never gotten a B before. And some of you are getting a B for the first time ever, and you made your peace with it. But here's the thing. I know your parents are going to be disappointed, and they think you're supposed to have a 98 in everything, right? But there's something you got to realize. The benefit in taking an AP class, maybe even over like a dual enrollment class, is not so much the class itself. It's the preparation, right? So you've reached the point in your life where if there isn't value in an activity, then you probably shouldn't spend your time doing it, right? So like if you're an athlete, don't spend your time doing something that's not going to get you better, right? Because here's the thing. You have goals, you have hopes, you have dreams, you have things you want to do, right? And I read this one time. I thought it was a really good quote. They're like, people, it's really about impulse control and discipline. People will give up what they want in the long run for what they want in the moment, right? I'm going to say that again. Like, people will give up what they want in the long run for what they want in the moment. I want you to think about that because, like, let's say, for instance, like you're an athlete and you want to get a scholarship. Well, that's a long, arduous process. It requires disciplined decisions every single day. And sometimes if you don't keep that focus on what you're trying to accomplish in the long term, you'll give up your dream for convenience. You won't wake up early and work out because it's just harder to do that. It takes more discipline. You won't eat right. You won't take care of your body. You won't go to camps. You won't do whatever it is that you have to do. Being a musician is no different. Being a student is no different. So stop buying into this lie that the only value for classes or courses or what you do academically is what they're going to do for you on your resume. Because I've got news for you. It doesn't matter what college you get into if you fail out of it. Right? It doesn't matter that you got into Harvard and you were there for 3 semesters and spent a bunch of money and came home. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's great that you got into a really, really good school, but it doesn't matter that you got into that school if you fail out of it. So when I left Gulf Breeze High School and went to college, I've told you this before, the biggest struggle that I had was that I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for the next level. It wasn't an intelligence problem. It wasn't a work ethic problem. It wasn't even like necessarily like a habits problem. But I'll tell you what the issue is. The issue is that when you go to college, you're adjusting to a new environment. But some of you, like myself, will also be adjusting to a new academic rigor. And that's what I don't want for you. If we can take care of the academic habits and teach you those things and push you, put some stress on you so you build that resiliency now, then when you get into an environment that might be a little bit more stressful because now you live in an apartment or you live in a dorm or you're learning how to pay your bills or you have to take care of your car, you have to balance a work schedule. So now your social life is disrupted. So your academics hopefully are already put into place. Right now your social life is in place. So I'm trying to disrupt your academics. You see how that works? You see how that makes sense? And the reason why is stress. We want to put it to the stress test, right? So like for instance, let's say like if this is like a sheet of metal. Some of you are athletes, right? We have a volleyball player in here. Okay, so I'll use this example. I think, this is why I'm going to say this, because I don't think, do we have football players in here? So I think that you guys are really talented. I think you're as talented maybe as you've ever been, even when I was a student here. But that said, and I promise you, I don't mean this I don't know how good you are as a team, right? And here's what I mean. And the same thing is true with most of you. You're very intelligent people, but I don't know how prepared you are. I don't know how good you are. And I don't think that that's because you're bad necessarily, but here's what I mean. I use the volleyball example because a big collection of massive amounts of talent, if it never gets tested, right, if it never gets put under stress, if it never gets put under tension, then we don't know how it's going to hold up, right? So you take like a piece of metal, and what happens when you put a lot of stress on a piece of metal is it does one of two things. It either bends or it what? It breaks. So if you don't get battle tested during the season, you guys saw the same thing last year, right, in soccer, right? Like you cruise through your regular season. If you don't get battle tested during the season, if we don't put stress and tension and pressure on you, if we don't strengthen with pressure, then what happens is instead of bending under pressure, you're going to crack. And that's the issue. And that's what happens when you're not prepared. When you leave this place and go to a new academic setting, but we haven't put you to the stress test. We haven't put you under tension. We haven't really tested the tensile strength of your wherewithal. Then what happens is you get massive amounts of tension and you crack. And that's what we want to avoid. That's what we want to avoid. And the problem is that you don't even really know how to deal with failure. And it's not so much your fault because we've shielded you from that for so long. Right? There's a famous Ben Franklin quote that I like a lot, and Ben Franklin once famously said that those who are good with excuses are seldom good for anything else. Which means like a lot of people can make really strong explanations why they didn't do something. And those people will never be successful. Because here's the reality, y'all. This is where we land the plane. It's not about your grade this quarter. I want you to be upset that you have a B. I'm not happy that you got a B. Right? In fact, I hope the B haunts you. I hope that 88% that you have makes you so mad at me that you like scream obscenities into your pillow, right? Because you know what? If it haunts you enough, you will scratch and claw in the second quarter and you'll get a 91, so you'll get an A. So you won't lose 13 points on a vocab quiz when you had 2 entire weeks to study for it. Because you will have learned from being put under pressure. But it's not just about your B this 9 weeks. It's also about your grade in the second 9 weeks, and the third, and the fourth, and getting ready for the AP exam in May, right? So I know some of you are like, this is not what I signed up for. I'm struggling a lot. Well, there's a couple questions I would ask you, right? Look at yourself compared to your peers. That's why we put distributions on the board. It's not to embarrass people, call people out for competition. No, I don't care how you measure up to other kids in the school. I care how you measure up academically against your peers, because that's who you're competing with. So you get a 77 on a test, and you're like, that's a bummer, that's a C. Well, no, that's the mean. You're right where your peers are. You're up there in that 60th percentile. You're going to pass the exam because you're competing with people on the same level as you academically. That's how you have to look at this. Because again, it's not about today. It's about getting ready for the exam. Think about how many times you could take an AP class, have an A for the whole year because you study one chapter at a time, and then you take the exam and you get a 2. That's a big waste of time, right? And this is what I want to say. Like, it's about preparing yourself by challenging yourself, and you don't even know what you're preparing for yet. Because even if it's not the first 9 weeks or the second or the fourth, I'll just show you guys this. And it's not like, I don't want to show you this because it like seemed like I'm awesome or whatever. But so this file right here represents 5 years. It's 5 years of letters. It's 5 years of emails. It's 5 years of cards. Now, some of them are from parents, not very many. Most of them are from students. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because the vast majority of these, and I don't know how many it is, were not sent to me during the first quarter of the school year. Right? In fact, they weren't sent to me at all during the school year. When do you think that students reach out to me, especially via email? After they leave. And again, it's not anything that I'm doing. It's not because I'm a superior teacher. There's lots of people on this campus that are way better at this job than me. Oops. But the reality is that I'm trying to take the deficiencies of the school system from 20 years ago and correct that. And I know that there's a disconnect there. I know it's a paradigm shift, but just stay on the train, right? I know it may not be what you signed up for, but like, just trust me. Just trust me. But you also have to buy into it, right? Next year, you may be going through some problems. And this may be the only thing that prepared you for the academic side of it. And I can live with that. Even if it's only one of you out of 173, I can live with that. Right? I can live with that. And maybe it's not. Maybe you won't have any problems at all. And that's great too. And you're not the one that needed the help. But that's part of it. That's the first thing. Accept the challenge. Rise to the occasion. Because you can do it. Stop taking the easy way out. Like, the only things that you can be proud of are the things that cost you something. Because guess what? You want things in life. You want a good job. Well, it's hard. You want a degree. It's hard. Right? You want a marriage. A functional relationship. Well, those things are hard. You know what? And most people who get divorced, which is 50% of the marriages, by the way, they don't go into it because they know, oh, this isn't going to be awesome because it's going to be hard. No, they go into it because the outcome is worth it. But if you don't pay attention to the process, it's going to fail. They don't prepare themselves, and they fail. I was on academic probation within the first 2 semesters of college because I was not prepared. I didn't challenge myself. I didn't hold up to the stress test. And I cracked. And that's not what I want for you. I don't want that in your personal lives. I don't want that in your finances. I don't want that in your athletic careers. I don't want that in your relationships. I don't want you to have regrets because you're too afraid to work for something that's worth having. So stop making excuses. Stop allowing your parents to make excuses for you. But rise to the challenge. It's worth having. 99% of the unsuccessful people in this society did literally nothing wrong except they failed to do the easy things that are inside of their control. And when they experience failure, they make excuses. And they blame somebody else. Right? So I want to challenge you with that, but I also want to encourage you because I want you to understand, yes, you're having a hard time. And yes, this might be more difficult. But that's the point of the process.